How are you? It's Rabbi Yehoshaphat over here. And I've been accused of adopting a new religion. Obviously, I'm an Orthodox Jew. But in addition to that, I now follow the conspiracy theory religion, um, which is, of course, a just ad hominem and a rhetorical tool to delegitimize what I'm saying. But in a way, there's some amount of truth to that because, what do they mean by that when they say religion? They mean a sort of all-encompassing worldview that informs one's perspective on the world. Now, when they say religion, they mean that it's irrational. That's because, of course, religion is viewed as inherently irrational, which of course I don't agree with, but that's the connotation. So, but in the sense that it represents a encompassing worldview. So yeah, there is truth to that accusation, because once you have come to accept that even one major conspiracy is true, such as in particular 9/11 being an inside job, then that changes your perspective on everything in the media and everything you're told from the government and academia and so on. It does. It affects your entire view of society and of the culture we live in. But you see, I'm not the only one with an encompassing worldview that determines how they interpret events around them and, so to speak, skews their perception. Because those who make this accusation themselves are viewing the world from a lens in which they assume that official sources can be trusted, that the government basically tells the truth, and that the government would not tell a big lie, and certainly would not do it all the time, and that the system of, in Western democracies, of checks and balances and regulations on corporations and so on, that this whole system works. That's their fundamental belief, faith, religion, with which they view the world around them. Now, they could be religious, in the sense of faith in God and a particular religion, or not. It's basically, separate from their religious belief is the way they interpret the news, the events, the reports they hear about dramatic, things that have supposedly happened. This all is channeled through the perspective they have, which comes from their schooling, comes from their parents, it comes from their peer groups, and it is an encompassing worldview. So they view that as quote unquote normal. It's the default, but they're no less guilty, so to speak, of interpreting everything through the lens of their individual worldview. And when we try to convince other people of over here in this ongoing, never-ending COVID debate, so whether the COVID believers are trying to convince the COVID skeptics or the other way around, what we have here fundamentally is a conflict between two different worldviews. And they're not so much debates about these specific issues. Because if you try to convince someone that masks are not effective or that masks are harmful, you're essentially saying that there's a grand conspiracy to impose masks, as a mind control operation. That's what you're saying. Because, firstly, the other person knows your opinion on that. And secondly, the idea that they would impose masks and they would make such a colossal mistake as to impose it even though it's ineffective and harmful, that really is not, it's much less plausible. It's when you say that masks are ineffective and harmful, what you're essentially saying is that there must be, what follows logically from that is that there must be a conspiracy. So therefore the person who you're debating with, who very much rejects the idea that government would be so evil, that person will be very strongly inclined to dismiss your arguments about masks because of the logical implications if you're right. And so therefore the debate about these technical matters is somewhat secondary, peripheral to the real issue over here. The real issue is how you look at official authorities. Are the checks and balances basically functional, or are they completely broken and is the system completely corrupt? That's really what you're debating. When you debate whether lockdowns work or not, that's really what you're debating. If you debate about, whether asymptomatic transmission is real, that's really what you're debating. If you're debating about, are the COVID figures inflated, or, are the injuries from the gene therapy being grossly understated or underreported or hidden, silenced. When you're debating all this, that's essentially what you're debating. So the problem is that, people don't want to change their fundamental worldviews. That's a big attack on their sense of self, on their identity, their core identity. And so therefore they're going to resist it. And, they will accuse truthers of the opposite. They'll say, you don't want to look at the proof that that COVID is a real thing, or that it's causing death, and that, masks protect, and that the vaccine is, effective, and so on. And so you're not really taking these arguments seriously. To some degree, there's truth to that. I mean, yeah, I'm not really taking these arguments seriously because I know they're coming from an utterly corrupt source that has proven that they have an evil agenda. So to the extent that I'm taking seriously any of these individual arguments is to the extent that I can figure out how to refute it. I mean, I don't know, maybe that doesn't sound intellectually honest, but um, it's about my fundamental worldview. And especially with regard to COVID, for me, the evidence is overwhelming that this is a hoax, that this is a planned, staged event. And so, therefore, when someone brings up a technical issue, yeah, I haven't, so to speak, agenda, but for a reason. um, so, yeah, um, in a way, the uh, the mindset of people who are so-called truthers, conspiracy theorists, is a kind of religion in a way, because it informs how you perceive society, how you perceive the world in which we live, to which we have to adapt in order to survive. And my point is simply that those who make that accusation are just as guilty of this supposed character flaw. God bless and shalom.